Okay, so good afternoon. Today I want to discuss the poetics of Ibibio prayer songs. This is because from my observations, the Ibibio prayer songs have poetic qualities that should interest a literary critic, any literary critic, especially one who loves poetry and poetry analysis. So welcome. Let us have this conversation together. Normally you need to know that poems are songs. This is because our songs have poetic elements and qualities. In fact, some songs were first written as poems before they were set to scored. So I want to look at Ibibio prayer songs as part of the oral tradition of the Ibibio people, part of folklore or folkloric elements, and there's beauty in the language. There is melody, there's rhythm, there are other poetic elements that require attention. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we sang these songs as children in churches. Now that I'm a scholar, I look at them again, and you cannot imagine the excitement that I feel to know that they could be analyzed as poems. So nothing in our environment should actually be discarded. Our culture is rich, and every creative experience provides us with art objects full of beauty and deserving of a scholarly attention. I hope that in the future I will put these thoughts into an academic paper for publication. But right now I would just like to have a conversation on the poetic qualities found in Ibibio prayer song. So welcome once again. Now, in my discussion, I'll be using the framework of post-colonial formalism. I am one of those proposing post-colonial formalism because I believe that language and literature, or any literary text, can benefit from a composite, eclectic approach to the interpretation of the text, meaning that from my observation, if you lean too much to theories that are literature based, you tend to miss out on the beauty of the language that would have been analyzed. And if you lean too much to theories that are linguistic based, or language based, then you tend to ignore the salient issues, the important issues that ought to be raised in the work. So this is why I join other critics in advocating the merging of theories that allow us to at once study content and form in any given work of art. And that is what post-colonial formalism aims to achieve, because there, what you do is to bring together tools from post-colonial studies, post-colonial theory, and tools from formalism, so that you can at once study the content and form of the text at any given reading. So that's beautiful, and I encourage other scholars to look at text from that perspective. There's really no need for us to quarrel. There's really no need to have this division between language and literature, because the two can cooperate and benefit from each other. So I have 4 songs that I want to analyze. I will sing and then I will transliterate. The first song says, Silmi Baukore Konguko Keme Kendi Sanga Nya Bere Yangaro Isende Kende Mwanikon Kanda Ubong. Again. Silmi Baukore Konguko Keme Kendi Sanga Nya Bere Yangaro Isende Kende Mwanikon Kanda Ubong. Now I have tried to translate this song into English, or let me use the term transliterate the song into English. And always remember that in the process of translation or transliteration, we normally lose some of the semantic texture from the source text. So you have to bear with me, right? Good. So the Ibibio text says, Siomi Ibaukut Ekon Kukut Nkemeke Ndisanga Nya Beneyung Ado Esendekendek Nwanekong Nkan Ndauba. Actually, it's a beautiful song when you come to look at it. Siomi Ibaukut Ekon Kukut Kemeke Ndisanga Nya Beneyung Ado Esendekendek Nwanekong Ndauba. Okay. It says, take off my soldierly shoes. I cannot walk wearing them. I would rather use the name they have blasphemed to fight, win, and take the throne. I will read the transliteration again, or translation again. Take off my soldierly shoes. You can say boots. Take off my soldierly boots, or take off my boots. Okay? Because if you use boots, then there's no need to add soldierly. Alright? Take off my boots, or take off my soldierly shoes. I cannot walk wearing them. If you look at my text here, I put wearing them in bracket just to clarify the context. Otherwise, if I'm doing transliteration, or which the context clarifies itself, it will just be, I cannot walk. Okay? And then, I will rather use the name they have blasphemed to fight, win, and take the throne. Okay, so remember, this song has its context, and the context is religion. Okay? And the fact that the song has its source language in Ibibio speaks to the tendency to decolonize the Christian religion itself. Of course, in the history of the Christian religion in Nigeria, we've had attempts to push the institution, the church institution itself, of colonial influences. All right. For instance, the use of it actually begins with the use of our language in the worship. There was a time when you couldn't use any other language except Latin, or if they even manage it, English. All right. Because some languages were considered more heavenly than others. But it's beautiful today that we can actually use our language in the worship of the Christian God. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? So the decolonization of the church begins in the use of our indigenous languages in the worship centers. And of course, that's why we had churches like African church. Some churches were so focused on decolonization so that they even named themselves African. Okay, but that doesn't mean that other churches have not, despite their name or nomenclature, done everything they could to make sure that the church was purged from Western influences. And so that's what we need to know. And the dominant trope in this excerpt, this song, is biblical allusion, because the incident it speaks about, it's a reference of the Bible talking about David when he needed to fight, okay, and then realizing that he could not go with the normal uniform usually worn by soldiers, and so he decides to use normal clothes, but trusting in God, using only catapult and missile to do the wonders recorded in the Bible against Goliath. Okay, so take off my soldierly shoes, so I cannot walk wearing them. I would rather use the name that blasphemed to fight when I take the throne. So biblical allusion is a dominant trope in this excerpt. Okay, and then we need to look at the persona. The persona is the voice speaking in the excerpt, in the poem. Okay, remember, songs are poems, so the persona speaking here originally is David, but it can mean anybody. Okay, anybody can take up the mask of David. It could be you, it could be me, but in the original context where this is drawn from the Bible, this is David speaking, saying, I don't need all these man-made weapons in order to fight this war. I rather use trust in God and use some mostly spiritual weapons to fight the war. Okay? So, the soldierly boots, or the boots here, represents, it could be a symbol of the weapon of man. Okay, the boots mentioned here, here could be a symbol for earthly man-made weapons that most people, people with rational scientific mind want to rely upon in the everyday warfare. But even the Bible says that our warfare is not carnal, all right? And so it is not all the time that you must rely on your physical weapons in order to fight certain battles. Sometimes you need to rely on spiritual weapons. And David actually realized at this point that this particular battle did not require only his physical strength, that he needed faith in God, to rely on spiritual weapons to win the war. That's why he said that the soldierly, that the boots should be taken from him, that it will hinder him. Sometimes human weapons could hinder us, could actually limit us or restrain us, or keep us away from victory if we don't realize the importance of spiritual weapons. All right? And so if David does not want to use human, man-made physical weapon to fight this war, what does he want to use? He says, I would rather use the name that blasphemed. Remember what Goliath did? He said all sorts of profanities against God while challenging the Israelites to a fight, because he was a giant, he had all the powers, the Israelites were afraid of him, and everybody thought they could not stand against him. And of course, when he challenged the army of the Israelites, no one was willing. All the elite soldiers were afraid. Only David, that was never considered, was the one who could stand up to the arrogance and he was the one who could stand up to the arrogance and the pride of Goliath. Okay? And when he took up the challenge, people did not actually believe that he could do it. They looked down on him. And of course, it was even more insane when he decided that he would not use the well-known, sophisticated weapons of the time. Okay? So they looked down on him. But he was sure, he had faith in God, he knew what he was doing. And so he said, I would rather use the name that blasphemed. And so the weapon that David wants to use here is God's name. In our time, we'll say the name of Jesus, okay, which is very powerful. What he's using here. It is Jesus in the slingshot. It is Jesus in the missile. And that is how he's able to win the war. Okay? So, what are the possible poetic qualities of this particular excerpt? One, as I've said, you have biblical allusion. Okay, we have a symbol in Ikbao Kodekong, or the boots, and then we have the conflict, because in every work of art you need to have conflict. That's what Judge Bernard Shaw says. Without conflict, there's no literature. So the conflict here is between physical and the spiritual. All right, the physical and the spiritual are battling here in the text. Okay, because once David rejects the boots, he is actually at the same time rejecting human, man-made weapons and opting for the spiritual, while the other members of the Israeli army believed in the physical weapons. Okay, so you have that conflict in the text. And given the story, given within the context of the story, because this is a poem, so the analysis can go beyond what we have here. We can actually see that the trust in the poetic strength overrides the trust in the spiritual, in the physical strength, because for me, the poetic strength is spiritual. It's metaphoric. Okay, so the idea then is that in any conflict, in any battle, it's important for you to select the right weapons. Okay, then another thing that I'll need to discuss in this excerpt is the war motif. The excerpt has the war motif in it. Okay, from the word Akam, then Siomi Baukodekam. Okay, then you also have Akam is repeated. You have a repetition of the word Akam at the first line and the last line. So the war motif is quite dominant in the poem, right? And it at once speaks to the war between the flesh and the spirits, the war between the physical and the spiritual, and which one is supreme, which one is superior at the end of the day. All right, so I'll just sing the song again, and then I move to the next one. Siomi Baukore Kongkukot Keme Kendi Sanga Nyawene Yungado Isende Kende Wanikong Kanda. All right, so we move on to the next excerpt. It's actually one of the songs that I sang yesterday. And it says, Ntugubeda young bodo, Ntugubeda young bodo, Ntugubeda young bodo, Ntugubeda semisa, become over one. The transliteration says, the Hamatan dew climbs to the mountain top. The Hamatan dew climbs to the mountain top. Once the Hamatan dew descends, the battle of the gods begins. Again, remember, I'm simply using contextualization to define my transliteration. Okay, it might not be what you might perceive of the source text, but that's how I view Ntugube. Okay, it's kind of due in the Harmattan season. Okay, so Ntugubeda yamaboro, Ntugubeda yamaboro, Ntugubeda yamaboro, Ntugubeda semisa, ekamaba matawande. The Harmattan dew climbs to the mountain top. The Harmattan dew climbs to the mountain top. Once the Harmattan dew descends, the battle of the gods begins. Okay, so this excerpt is quite poetic in the sense that it is rooted in nature tradition. Okay, if you studied Renaissance literature, you would have been exposed to the nature tradition, whereby human beings take lessons from occurrences in nature, or human beings liken their life and experiences to the experiences they encounter in nature, or writers use experiences in nature to account for certain aspects of the human experience. So that's what happens here, and I think there's that depiction of the nature tradition in this song, which is a poem as well. It's quite symbolic, because like giving a sign, okay, human beings are always looking for a sign. Remember that part of the Bible that when Jesus said that the world is looking for a sign, all right? So human beings are appreciators of signs. We're always looking for signs for something, okay, to give us an idea that something is about to happen. So in this song, it's about timing, finding the right timing for the shift, spiritual shift to take place, okay, which is made possible because shifts only happen when there is conflict and the conflict has been resolved. But this conflict does not necessarily involve human beings. It's actually the battle of the gods. All through literature, the history of literature, we always see the intervention of the supernatural in human affairs. If you study the epics, for instance, you normally come across the intervention of the supernatural in human affairs. And so I think this is exactly what is happening here. Human beings worship deities, worship God and gods in order for them to intervene in their situations, in their circumstances. And that's partly alluded to in this excerpt. So it's like this poem is watching out for the moment when the battle for deliverance, the battle for paradigm shifts, when the battle for miracles will take place, for the battle for the liberation of humanity will take place. And so they're simply watching for the sign. Okay, so it's like saying, yeah, it is right now, the Harmattan dew is climbing the mountaintop. The Harmattan dew is full, it's going up the mountaintop. Let us watch, because by the time the Harmattan dew comes down, that is when the war for our liberation will start. Okay, so praying also requires watching. That's why the Bible says watch and pray. Okay, so you just don't pray as you like. You pray according to time and seasons. You pray when the time is right. That's why sometimes some people are given certain moments to pray. You don't just pray at any given moment. Prayer has its own time. And part of the ways to know when to pray is to watch for the spiritual signs of prayer. Okay? Isn't that beautiful? So you need to watch for the right time to pray. And I think that's what this song denotes. Again, of course, you can have your interpretation. That is the beauty of literature. That's the beauty of poetry. But for me, I think this is what this song is all about. It's about everybody watching and waiting for the right moment to take action. That's the action in prayer to get things done. Because if you don't pray at the right moment and at the right time, you might miss out on your miracle. And even Jesus told his disciples to watch and pray. All right, so okay, so what I noticed in this excerpt is that sententially, this excerpt could be written in just 2 sentences. Sententially, the excerpt could just be written in 2 sentences. Okay? But then one sentence is repeated 3 times. So there's repetition. Repetition is a poetic quality. Repetition gives the poem its musical, melodious quality, which is very important. So you could say that one of the dominant poetic figures or tropes in this excerpt is repetition. Okay? So it is that repetition that gives that poem its poetic quality. And note that it is repeated 3 times. 3 is a highly symbolic number. Okay, sometimes people tell you So people will call you and ask you, how many times have I called you? Have I called you? It's likely going to be 3 times, okay? So, because the number 3 is highly spiritual and highly symbolic number. And so it plays into that larger framework of security, timeliness, watchfulness, discernment of the times. Some people just live, they cannot discern the times. If you cannot discern the time, then you are not spiritually sound, or you are not poetically sound, okay, because you have to discern the time. So that's about it for that excerpt. And I move on to the next excerpt, and it says, Lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lion ita, lion imenke, lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lion ita, lion imenke. So in transliteration or in translation, the song says, the lion only roars, the lion only roars, the lion only roars, it cannot devour, cannot swallow. Okay? Lion above your coney, lion above your coney, oh, lion above your coney, lion ita, lion imenke. The lion only roars, the lion only roars, the lion only roars, it cannot devour, cannot swallow. Lion above your coney, lion above your coney, lion above your coney, lion ita, lion imenke. Okay? So this is a deeply poetic poem, also steeped in biblical allusion. It takes up with the symbolism of the lion, or with the metaphor of the lion, if you like. Okay, where the lion is normally seen as a brutal, cruel animal that oppresses other animals in the forest. But again, the lion is also a man or human-eating animal. The lion can have the audacity to attack human beings, especially when they are in vulnerable position, when they are lonely, when they are alone, actually. And so, the lion here should be understood within the context of human relations, and of course, within the context of spiritual relations. Okay, so the lion here could be an oppressor. The lion here could be an existential force that raises itself, threatens the individual's existence. Okay, so that's why that when you say lion, it is why I really love the language. It is so rich in poetry, isn't it? Because it allows you to explore the nuances, the semantic nuances that exist in the text. So the lion could be an existential force. The lion could be an oppressor. The lion could be anything that threatens the individual's existence or welfare. Okay? It could also be a spiritual monster, okay, that wants to destroy the life of an individual. So the best way to understanding this point, the best way to understand this point is to first of all decode the symbolism of the lion, or the metaphor of the lion. Okay? So the lion stands, what the lion stands for is what gives you an idea. But the person singing this, the persona singing this song or speaking these words is a highly spiritual person, because not only is the person highly spiritual, the person is also very courageous. It takes a courageous individual to stand against the lion. You understand what I'm saying? Not in any given society, if you say, let us go and hunt a lion, maybe out of 100 people, you might just see 3 who are willing to go to hunt the lion, because they know how dangerous it is. So the person speaking this line is someone that is spiritually courageous, who can defy the power of the lion. Why? Because the person knows his or her spiritual backing. And the person knows that the lion is merely roaring, showing his strength, but cannot do anything, cannot hurt the person. So the lion only roars, only roars, but it cannot devour, cannot swallow. Again, meaning that in the face of trouble, in the face of challenges, the faithful Christian, the courageous Christian, knows that with time the challenges will go, but that it is his faith, it is his courage that will remain at the end of all the conflicts. How powerful can that be? So as I've said, we need to unlock the symbolism of the lion in order to penetrate the meaning, the semantics of this song. Okay? Lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lion above your conio, lionita, lion. Okay? So that's the analysis of that particular one. Then I move to the fourth and the final song, the excerpt, and it says, Sioba osene demiano, Sioba osene demiano, Sioba osene demiano, Obaro kana, Pero asokure. Sioba osene demiano, Sioba osene demiano, Sioba osene demiano, Obaro kana, Pero asokure. Show forth the hand of ancient days. Show forth the hand of ancient days. Show forth the hand of ancient days. The hand which made Pharaoh perish in the sea. Okay? Again, the song is rooted in biblical allusion and has its major trope repetition. And this song applies to the context of the Israelites and their experiences in Egypt, okay, and how God stood strong to defend them, according to the Bible story, to help them, to deliver them from the Pharaoh of Egypt, and then to lead them out to the promised land, okay. And the persona of the song, the voice speaking in the poem, is actually recalling the past wonders and the miracles of God, how He liberated the Israelites when they had challenges, and he feels that he has, that same God can deliver him or her from present day challenges. And so that's why the persona is saying that God should show forth that same hand that He showed when the Israelites were oppressed in the land of Egypt. Okay, so this poem is quite beautiful in the sense that it has some interesting poetic elements. For instance, Silbos and Edemian. That I have translated this to show forth the hand of ancient days. Now that hand is an example of synecdoche in literary trope. It's an instance of synecdoche, a part-whole relationship, using parts to represent a whole. Synecdoche is the use of part to represent a whole, or use of a whole to represent a part. But in this case, it's the use of a part to represent a whole, because the hand there talks about God. All right, and the hand of God through Moses saved the Israelites from their challenges in Egypt. And with that statement, you could see that we have a split temporality. We have a split temporality in the sense that we are both talking about the past and the present. And the person is using past references to have faith for the present challenges. Because God did it before, He can and will do it again. So let's have faith. Okay, that's why the person is saying you've done it. It's by implicature, the person is saying you've done it again. You did it to the Israelites. You did it for the Israelites when they were suffering in Egypt. You can do it again for me in contemporary times. So at once we are looking at the present and the past colliding in this point. But the coming together of the past and the present is more harmonic in the sense that the past tends to give faith to the present. Okay? So it is the hand which made Pharaoh perish in the sea. That's the biblical allusion telling us about, alluding to the Bible story where the Israelites, in pursuit of where the Egyptians, in pursuit of the Israelites, perished in the sea. Okay? And again, you have that repetition that I was talking about. The last three excerpts that we've taken has the same structure. So if you are looking at the structuralism of this poem, you could point to that because you have the repetition of a line 3 times, and then the conclusion of that particular line. Okay, like the first one was Ntugubedo or Yomabud was repeated 3 times. The second one was Lion of Fiokun repeated 3 times, and now Suba was an Edemian repeated 3 times. Okay, and then you now have the final line. Okay, and I said the repetition serves musical purposes, melodic purposes, because it is music. Okay, and the repetition is also what makes the poem, what gives the poem its poetic qualities. Okay, so I would like to bring this live to an end at this point. I will hope to do more research and then have this out in a structured paper format in the future. So do have a blessed day.